Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final day of the conference. Let's welcome Connor Johnson, Saba Muine Chang, and Marquita Renee Davis to the stage for today's wellness moment.
Good morning. Hello.
Welcome, everyone. Ooh. I got a big voice. Hi. We're back. It's so great to see all of you. And we're here to share with you the last wellness moment of this conference together.
You know us by now, hopefully. I'm Connor Johnson.
And I'm Saba Muine Chang. And we are Grounded in Love. And I'd like to start us off today on a note of self-love with a quote from Sonia Renee Taylor, who many of you may know, and her book, The Body is Not an Apology. And it goes like this: making peace with your body is your mighty act of revolution. It is your contribution to a changed planet where we might all live unapologetically in the bodies we have. And now I'd like to pass it over to Connor to share some of his story.
I've been doing this work for 15 years, and about 5 years ago, I was super burnt out, needing to get sober, and needing to focus on my own healing. As I did that, I realized the power of community, and being in community in healing. Wellness, healing, it's a personal journey, a personal practice, but we can do it in the collective and in community. Someone I met on this journey is Marquita Renee Davis. And Marquita Renee Davis is a sound healer and movement instructor based here in Los Angeles who helps people connect to their bodies, to get out of your head and into your body. So we invite you to take a moment as she gives you a practice and a body scan to just take a second to be embodied. We'll join you on stage as Marquita leads us in this practice.
And so we invite you to just take a moment and maybe pause from your meal. And sorry to ask that because I know you may be hungry. And we're going to model the practice for you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you could, please, I know it's just a few minutes, but if you could just go ahead and let your hands rest in your lap, go ahead and enjoy that last bite as you close your eyes. And take a slow breath in through the nose, fill up all the way. And if it's available, exhale out the mouth slowly. Take another long, slow, deep breath in, fill up, and exhale. Go ahead and continue with these cleansing breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. As we start to settle in, close your eyes and look within the body. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Naturally sealing your lips, breathing in and out the nose, letting the breath be light, soft, and deep. And bring your awareness to the top of your head as we slowly work down, breath by breath, down the body, introducing lightness, softness, and depth. Exhale, the face softens, the ears relax, the jaw. Take a slow breath in. Exhale, continue to travel down the body, down the neck, focusing on the shoulders for a cycle or two. As you exhale, can you feel the heaviness start to dissolve? One breath at a time. Exhale, the softness travel down the arms, into the creases of the elbows, down to the wrists, the fingertips and the hands. Take another long, slow, deep breath in, fill up, and exhale, focusing on the chest. Hear the steady beat of your heart. Exhale a little bit longer now as you let the heaviness in the chest evaporate. Stay with it. Easing down. Inhale all the way to the top. This time hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, pushing down through the belly, into the hips. Softness, lightness. Continuing down, down the legs. Slowly wrapping around the glutes, the back of the thighs. Just feel these muscles softening. Your knees melting. Just give it another slow breath in. Exhale all the way down to the soles of your feet. Feel the earth supporting you in this moment as you find the softest, lightest version of yourself. Take another long, slow, deep breath in as you travel back up the body, focusing on any spaces that are heavy and using your breath to spread that lightness, spread that softness as you reach all the way to the top, full completeness. As we are present in this moment, gently bring your palms to your heart. Feel the steadiness, the slow beat, the steadiness of your breath, realizing that all it takes is just a slow breath in, a slow breath out, a moment of stillness. This magic is always with you. Your breath is your best friend. And as always, amazing work here today. Full breath in, making space for the abundance and opportunities headed your way. Exhale. Release your fears. Release your doubts. Namaste.
So as we leave you today, we just wanted to share one last thing. We love this concept of a glimmer that Anne shared with us on our first plenary. And we wanted to offer you something that you may not have considered. The glimmer that is the opposite of the trigger, right? That's as she defined it. And she invited us to look for glimmers on a daily basis. And we wanted to offer you that the truth that you are, in fact, a glimmer for the people that you love, for the people that you serve. And thank you for these wonderful glimmer moments that we've had with you these past 3 days that to us is amazing. And the power of healing together is intergenerational. We have that transformational power together, so thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll send more information about aftercare and continuing this collective healing. Thank you so much. We wish you peace, joy, and wellness.
Thank you, Connor, Saba, and Marquita for those moments of quiet today. As a reminder, sound really carries in this ballroom, so please, please, please limit the conversations at your table so that everyone can hear during the plenary. We'd like to welcome to the stage the Alliance's Director of Lived Experience and Innovation, Albert Townsend.
So hello, conference family, how you doing? My name's Albert, and as Lindsay just announced, I am the Director of Lived Experience and Innovation at the Alliance. So I want to say just good morning, and that I'm hopeful that all is going well with you today. I'm also hopeful that you feel hopeful, and that you feel joyful and faithful, and you're filled with love through this entire experience over the last few days. And if I can just pause for a moment just to make a recognition, I get the opportunity to bring about 15 or 20 individuals who are lived experience leaders to the Alliance each conference. And I just want to recognize them and say that as I engage, we have some really strong stories around triumph and how we know things are really haywire, but the stories inspire us to do more and be more. And we're really considerate of the space that we take up and the time we spend with each other, but those stories are really, really powerful. I bring two groups. There's one group who is a scholarship group. Their job is to come, learn, and explore and be the best possible version of themselves, and go home and really start to think about what's next and possibly partner with us, whoever knows, right? But I also work with a team directly. They're called the Community Strategic Team, and they do work with me inside and outside the Alliance to help us build some new innovation around how our lived experience friends are partnering with the Alliance. I'm excited about these relationships because they're very important, and these relationships not only are doing work around coming to the conference, but they are really ambassadors in their own community around how this work is going to be transformed, but more so how they use their talents and skills, not only with us, but in their community. So I just wanted to recognize those two groups and say thank you. I know some of our scholars and our CST folks are here, so I want to say thank you. I appreciate you. So as we move through this final day of the conference, the Alliance wants to assure that you feel refreshed and that it has some vigor to it. When you arrived, that same vigor, we want it to be at capacity when you leave out. And from my circles, the feedback has been overwhelmingly that the experiences have been really, really well and going really, really good. So how do we sustain that, though? How do we sustain that when we leave the conference? How do we be accountable and incorporate these lessons learned into our human being? And what does it feel like to go home with some resiliency? Specifically, when I encounter being knocked down by a setback, faced with adversity, or any kind of situation that deals with a strain or growing and learning from a difficult experience, and living in a place where reintegration after a detrimental crisis have left me disconnected, what do I do and how do I move forward? But what's more importantly is that how do you define resiliency? And really, resiliency is something that you can define however you want to, because it's diverse, has many colors, it comes in different shapes and sizes, and it's very, very unique. When I think about resiliency and hope, though, in some instances, only through experience of trial and suffering can my soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. When I learn to grow from my pain, I will in time recover quickly through my own experience. And when I think about resiliency and faith, I think about adaptation, bouncing back from situations that are very unknown without understanding why those situations ever existed, but developing this unknown into a collective resource that builds a concrete pillar for my survival. So, some of the truths about faith and resiliency. For me, Joshua 1:9 says, "Be strong and be courageous. Do not be terrified." 1 Corinthians 16:13 says, "Be watchful, stand firm, and be strong." And Proverbs 24:16 says, "You fall 7 times, but you will rise again." I keep those dear to my heart. When I experience pain in life, it serves as a natural warning signal, alerting danger and drawing attention to me, but acting as a catalyst for personal growth, helping me navigate and give value and strength to my outcome. When I think about resiliency and joy, that's a different thing, because I really go back to the basics, so the work feels more useful and relevant, building a combination of passion and perseverance with a sense of belonging that has a hint of gratitude. Also, compassion, purpose, and meaning as the foundation around everything that I do. When I think about resilience and love, I look to stay grounded. I see every day as my last day, utilizing lessons learned as a product to give back, but more importantly, to think about being hopeful, joyful, faithful, but loving unconditionally. So in closing, have you designed your resiliency plan? And if you have, what are the goals? Think about how you're going to sustain yourself through these turbulent times. You might even build a pack of resilientionists, whoever that may be. So really thinking about what you're going to do when you leave. But in closing, I do appreciate you. The Alliance see you and they hear you. And I want to thank you for listening to me today. Coming up next is our VP of Communications, Tom Murphy.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. Happy Friday. So glad to be in one room with all of you for the past few days. I hope everyone's had a wonderful conference. Before we go any further, I'm on limited time, but we do need to make a moment. For the past 3 days, Jamu and Lavender have served as our sign language interpreters. Can we please get a round of applause for them? Thank you so much. So I am absolutely thrilled to introduce our next speaker. Kevin Fagan is an award-winning journalist and a passionate storyteller. Most of you know him from his work with the San Francisco Chronicle, and I want to tell you a little story about how I came to know Kevin. It was my first week on the job at the Alliance, and at that time I was running media relations for the organization along with other duties. And Nan Roman, who was the CEO at that time, walked into my office about, I don't know, the second or third day, and he said, "I had a call last night with Kevin Fagan at the San Francisco Chronicle, and I told him you were new here, and I asked him to call you." I said, "Thank you." And 2 days later, my phone rang, and he said, "Hi, it's Kevin. You got a second?" I said, "Yes, I do." And I was so excited to help Kevin put together a story. I was so excited to set up some interviews and get him some resources and get him some data or some reports or something to really work together and impress the boss and put together a great story on homelessness in San Francisco. And the first thing he says is, he tells me his story, what he does, the kinds of stories he works on. Being a shoe leather reporter, really living for the stories of the people on the streets and understanding them better. I said, "Great." And he says, "So how long have you been working in homelessness?" So I tell him a little bit about my experience. He says, "Great. What were you doing before then?" I was like, "Oh, well, I told him about some other work experiences that I had." I'm like, "Great. Where are you from?" So I tell him where I grew up and where I live. "You got any kids?" This is getting weird. And so I tell him about my family. He says, "What do you do for fun?" I'm starting to think that there's no story here. So we talk a little bit. He says, "Oh, okay. So your name's Murphy, huh?" "My name's Fagan. You like Irish music?" "I'm in a band." At this point, we've been on the phone for half an hour. There's no story. He just wanted to get to know me. I've been doing media relations for a long time. That's never happened to me before. No reporter has ever called me up to get to know me before we work together. And I thought it was kind of bizarre at the time, but as I got acquainted with Kevin's work, it became so obvious that these are the qualities that make him an outstanding reporter. These are the qualities, this curiosity, this familiarity, this kindness, this friendliness, this desire to know more about people, this love. Love. The love for other people is what makes it possible to earn the trust of people with some of the most severe challenges anywhere in this nation when he covers the chronically homeless and unsheltered people in San Francisco. This is what made it possible for people to open up and share their experiences. And it's what allowed him to write this magnificent book that we're going to learn about today. Very quickly, Kevin Fagan's The Lost and the Found takes an empathetic, character-driven approach to exploring the human side of what's behind the homelessness epidemic. An award-winning journalist and Pulitzer Prize nominee who has covered homelessness for decades and spent extensive time on the streets for his reporting, Fagan has experienced it himself as a young man and brings deep understanding to the crisis. He introduces us to Rita and Tyson telling the deeply moving story of two unhoused people rescued by their families with the help of Fagan's reporting and their struggle to pull themselves out of homelessness and addiction, ending both with enormous tragedy and triumph. But The Lost and the Found is not just a story of individuals experiencing homelessness, it is also a compelling look at the link between homelessness and addiction and an incisive commentary about housing and equality. Fagan shines a sharp light on this national calamity, and in sharing Rita and Tyson's stories, The Lost and the Found has the potential to change the way we see and help the unhoused. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Kevin Fagan, who will be joined in conversation by the Alliance's Ann Oliva.
Thank you.
That was a really lovely introduction, wasn't it? It was a little surprising.
I remember talking to Tom. He's a nice guy. So's Ann.
So, this book is something that I really enjoyed reading. I talked a little bit about it in the opening plenary. Can we get the timer running, folks, so that I don't lose track? And I don't often read books about homelessness in my free time because I think about homelessness a lot in my day job. But I made an exception for this one. And I really enjoyed it. It's beautifully written, and I just want to thank you for writing it.
Thank you. I loved writing it, I'll tell you that.
You can tell that you loved writing it. So I want to start with an opening question. It's a little bit about the why. By my math, you have been doing reporting on homelessness for about 40 years. Is my math right? You don't often talk about your own experiences experiencing homelessness as a young person. And I want to know why now in this book, and why Rita and Tyson. You've talked to hundreds or maybe thousands of people over your career. So tell me a little bit about the why.
Well, first off, why I have done this. I was poor for much of my childhood, and then I had some periods of homelessness after I left home at 16, and sleeping in my car while going to college, various situations. And one thing about writing is you write what you know, and you, as a journalist, I found it was useful for me to explore this subject of homelessness and poverty, because I wanted to figure out, why the hell was I poor? What can be done to address this? And as I dug into the subject more, I loved it. I also did a lot of crime, general assignment. I was an editor, the kind of thing you do in a 40-year career as a journalist. But homelessness, I used to tell my editors, was my happy place, and they'd raise an eyebrow and say, because watched executions and covered horrible killings. Homelessness, when you write about homelessness, you can actually make a difference. And that's what I love about it. And in the course of interviewing all those hundreds, maybe thousands of people over the years, I ran into Tyson and Rita. In 2003, I was put on the street for 6 months to immerse with a photographer named Brant Ward, and we spent a lot of time at a place called Homeless Island, which if you read the book, you'll certainly learn a lot about it. And Rita was one of the people living there. She was addicted to heroin and crack, had AIDS, and had abscesses that were about to kill her. And all the other people on the island had similar troubles. And my heart really went out to them, and all of them were kind of tough nuts to get to know. But Rita told me she had 5 kids, she had a life once, and then her boyfriend died on the island. He had flesh-eating disease. It ate him alive, killed him. And at the end of the 6 months, I wrote a 5-day series called Shame of the City. And the first story was all about the island. And her family back in Florida read this and said, wow, didn't realize the depth and the location. And, you know, it essentially spurred them to come out and give another try at rescuing Rita. And her sister, Pam, lovely lady, emailed me and said, I'm coming out to do this. And, you know, don't try to find me. I'm going to try this by myself. Took her back to Florida. I gave it a year, went back and found that this had actually worked. She had rehabbed. That struck me. That was different to do the arc of the story from the beginning to the end. And then in the course of reporting those things, I dug into her childhood and everything that had led her to the street. And I've done that on a lot of people, but Rita really touched my heart in a way that was different. We became friends for the next several decades. And with Tyson, I met him a few years ago in a daily story that I did about a homeless shelter that was being proposed. And he was sitting on a piece of cardboard. He'd just smoked meth, and you know, he was doing speedball stuff with the fentanyl, heroin, and meth. And he was clear-headed, and I had a great conversation with him. I thought, what a thoughtful guy. Put him in the story, had a photo. His brother in Ohio read this and called me and said, help me find my brother. I lost him 7 years ago. And I said, great, because I've helped a lot of people try to find people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We found Tyson, and I've been doing this long enough that I allowed myself to participate in the intervention, but he didn't need much intervention. He was cooked, as street counselors among you will know. He was ready to go, and it was joyful. The word that I keep hearing is joyful here, and hope. It was joyful for me to see him rejuvenate and to see his family reconnect and to see a life regenerating. I just loved that. And you'll have to read the book to hear the ending of Tyson, because I'm not supposed to give away the ending.
Please do not.
But so these 2 people really touched me. I could have written about a whole bunch of people, but the 2 of them wove together fairly nicely in a narrative fashion to let me do this book.
I agree. I'm glad that you chose these 2 people. I think that their stories, I know I cried, I laughed, I had so much respect for them and for you as I was reading the book. It felt like a really good choice to me. Although I don't know all the people that you've talked to, this felt really, really good. I want to switch gears for just a little bit. You noticed that we talk about joy a lot on this stage and in this conference. You also noticed that we had healers up here to open our session today. And that's something that we are really focused on. How do we help people sustain themselves in this work? Because it can be really hard. And I've noted, and Tom has noted, that there's been a lot of really good reporters that have been on the homeless beat. I've been doing this for 30-something years. And, but I've also noticed that they burn out after a few years. Covering suffering in the way that homeless beat reporters cover suffering, I think, probably takes a toll. And I wonder, for you who have made it 40 years and you wrote this beautiful book at the end of that kind of journalism career, what do you do to sustain yourself, and how do you continue to write on this topic with such humanity and compassion?
I try to see the inner person when I interview homeless people. I love interviewing homeless people. Sometimes you're talking to someone, they're having an episode, or they're too high to talk. That's fine. That's the dysfunction you're talking to, so you come back later, or you talk to someone else. The people that I can have conversations with, I love, because there's always that inner person in there who doesn't want to be homeless, who had a future once, who was somebody's baby, and I want to reach that, and that helps rejuvenate me. A part of it is, I've had a pretty intense career. I've watched people burn to death. I've been shot at. I've been slashed, mauled by dogs. I mean, when you put that and watched execution.
Just mauled by dogs, whatever, it's fine.
In a homeless camp. But if you put that into context with talking with homeless people and writing things that can actually make a difference, that's a happy thing. That's a good thing. And that keeps me, it's the comparison of, they always say, you need to know the bad to appreciate the good. You need to know the intense to appreciate the hopeful, I guess. And I, like Tom said, I'm in a band. I'm in a couple of bands. I write songs. I sing. I meditate. I, do exercise. I've got a lovely family. I mean, most of the people, the chronically homeless people that I deal with, have had journeys much more difficult than anything I had to do. But I had my share of crap happening when I was growing up, and I overcame it, and I have a good life. And I like sharing that with the people I talk to in the street. And after all these years, I'm not afraid to say, after you have a conversation, get what you need to get for your story and connect with someone, the conversation usually rolls around to, well, what do you need to get off the street? I've never met any homeless person who, in the most honest, truthful moment, really wants to be homeless. No one wants to be homeless. And I'll tell you, this organization, I was telling Ann, I'll give a little plug just for a minute, that I've dealt with endless nonprofits and organizations and interviewed everyone from the presidents on down. I love this organization because it has breadth. It gets the severity of the problem from the street on up to the policy level, and you actually care. And I've really appreciated that all these years.
Thank you. So I've chosen a passage that I would like for you to read for the audience. And when you're done with it, I'd like you to talk a little bit about why you wrote that passage and why the approach described in that passage is so important to you, especially as so many members of this audience are trying to shift a really, really dehumanizing narrative that's taking hold across this country about people who are experiencing homelessness, and your approach is very different than that. So would you mind reading the passage? It's
Sure.
on page 238.
Yeah, and you're talking about reporters who burn out. It's funny because the ones who have done homeless writing at the Chronicle usually last a couple of years, and I had a couple of them say, I don't know how you've done this long. it is wearing. It's like doing your work. That's wearing. And writing about it is wearing, but you look for the good within the bad. So this is on page 238. And this is when I'm talking about how we have a system in the country that essentially perpetuates poverty, and I would love to see that addressed. I'd like to see it end. I'd like to see us do better. So I wrote this. But there is this. No matter how far people sink into indigence, the demons of addiction and abandonment or mental illness, there is always that grain of hope. There is always that younger self deep inside them who once had a future and could again. Looking for that hope, talking to street folks about that hope they so often lose touch with, helping my readers understand how awful it can be to be trapped in a life gone wrong and how damnably unjust that is in a society as rich as ours. That has real worth, real emotional reward. It's a relief working with that, and it helps me process what I see and feel.
Tell me why that was important for you to write, and it's towards the end of the book. Yeah.
I think it helped explain why I hang in there with people. A lot of people hit and run on subjects and on profiles. I like following to see if there is some hope in a lot of these narratives. Can't follow everyone. I wrote 5,300 stories for the Chronicle. Can't follow them all. But you folks need the hope inside yourselves. It's a burnout kind of profession because it's wearing, you don't get paid enough, long hours. And in journalism, covering homelessness is, you do 10 interviews to get one great, set of quotes and circumstances to fill what the story that you're trying to write is. You need to keep, to keep regenerating yourself, to keep your flame alive, and doing different aspects of the stories helps, because you're doing one thing over and over and over, it can pound on you. I would often change up a little bit. I do a little more on supportive housing one year. I do a little more on street outreach another. It's like what you do. Every person you meet is different, of course, but you want to change things up a little bit to keep it different and freshen yourself up. And that's how I keep my hope alive for covering the issue. And like I said, I loved writing the book. It was so wonderful getting to know Rita and Tyson's families in a deeper way than I ever had. And they let me write about myself, which, most people like talking about themselves a little bit. And so it's autobiographical. And they let me ride my little hobby horse at the end, talking about how poverty should not exist to the extent that it does in this country. And poverty is, for me, the main reason we keep having homelessness coming at us, happening to people unendingly. And the efforts that you guys do is the bulwark against the tide, and I really appreciate that.
Do you have any tips for the people who are in this room about how they can convince their local reporters, or even in their own communications to the community, how they can do the thing that you just described?
That's tough. I would not want to be on your end of the telephone, because mostly media organizations at their basic level like stories about what's wrong. I mean, we cover the unusual. So who screwed up? What $50,000 fund got wasted? Who's died in a housing complex somewhere? But after I did that 2003 series, I got called by a few folks who were creating something called solutions journalism, and they used it as one of the models for how to address it, because I wrote about solutions at the end of that 5-day series, how to fix it, which is a little presumptuous. And of course, it didn't fix everything, but I focused on supportive housing and street outreach. And so if you're going to sell a story to a reporter. One of these sessions I attended just an hour ago or so was talking about a great program in Alameda County that actually saved millions of dollars by front-ending the care. And I know a lot of programs that front-end the care, and you don't get noticed because it's money that got saved for problems that didn't materialize. That's a hard story to sell. But what you do is you emphasize the money. If you can parse it out with some data that proves things, that's a good story, and that's a happy story. I love writing those kind of stories, and you will find reporters somewhere, somehow, who also love writing those stories.
I think that's a great sort of tip for the folks who are in this room as they're thinking about how to change communications at the local level, and certainly for us as we think about communications at the national level. And I want to go a step further now, and I want to talk about something that I think is hard for a lot of people to talk about. As a field, sometimes we sort of shy away from talking about addiction as part of our work to end homelessness. And we do that. There's a variety of reasons for that. We don't want to be seen as sort of buying into a negative narrative, and there's a number of things, but you sort of take addiction head on in this book, and you are primarily writing about people who are experiencing chronic homelessness. Addiction is part of their stories. Why was it important to show that side of their lives, and how, as a field, can we talk about drugs without sacrificing the humanity of the people that we're talking about?
Yeah, you always have to remember that the person who is addicted was not addicted at one point, and some series of steps of fate, bad luck, bad choices, whatever, led them there. But there's always the non-addicted person within the addicted person. I chose early on to focus on the chronically homeless population because, as you know, it's only about a third of the total homeless population. The rest are in shelters and a lot self-resolve. But those are the people that we see the most, that the public perceives as being all homeless people, living in tents, causing disruptions in the street. They're the most in crisis, and they need the most help. And so for the chronically homeless population, so many are addicted to something. Many have mental trauma of one form or another. So in my writing, I always like to be as blunt as possible, as straight ahead as possible. And you always get editors, I don't know if there are any other reporters in here, but you always get editors who want to crimp you back because you don't want to ruin people's breakfast, they'd say. Reality is educational, and you have to be as straight up as you can. So addressing addiction and how difficult it is to deal with that, most people have to try rehab about 6 times before it sticks. Most people out in the rest of the world don't know that. They think, oh, give the guy some rehab and it's all okay. It's kind of like the attitude that, give a woman a shelter bed and a sandwich and they'll pull themselves up by a bootstrap. No, it's if you show the depth of how hard it is to deal with these disabilities in the street, maybe people can understand better and make better decisions when they look at this topic, they vote, they support organizations, just better decisions as a society. So I try not to soft soap anything. I mean, I try not to swear when I write because I think that alienates people, but I try to reflect what street people say and do so that you can get a window into what that world really is. Not, no, sugar coating on the window, so to speak, to mix the metaphors. I want you to really see it.
And our last question, we could be up here for, as far as I'm concerned, for hours.
Yeah, I love talking about it. I'm talking about it with you.
Yeah, it's great. So we just have a few minutes left. The last question sort of piggybacks on what you just mentioned. And one of the things that we track at the Alliance and that we worry about is that it seems like the state of newspapers in particular is changing, and not in a great way for the kind of in-depth stories that were really your bread and butter at the Chronicle. And I wonder who writes these stories if newspapers aren't covering this material in the kind of depth that you have for the last 40 years.
It still gets done, and the decline of newspapers has been somewhat replaced by the rise of endless online media outlets. And some of those places, the Center for Investigative Reporting, Reveal is a site, they'll do in-depth stuff. Cal Matters, and I'm just thinking about here.
They're here somewhere.
Yeah, they do terrific in-depth stuff. At the Chronicle, I was still doing in-depth stuff before I left. I retired last month, and we have well, thank you. This is keeping me a little busy, but so I'm not sitting around in a hammock somewhere. But the woman who's
Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us with that brief mic issue. If you didn't hear the last few words of that, Kevin was reading from his new book, The Lost and the Found. So we encourage you to read the book, follow him, and continue on in this plenary. As another reminder, the voices do really carry, so please limit your conversations. And would love to bring to the stage the woman who makes it all happen. She's behind the scenes, the reason we're all here, the Alliance's Director of Meetings and Events, Gina Davis.
with you her own story of resilience and perseverance. She has truly made her message, and what an inspiring message it is. Here to share that light and stand in her power, please welcome the founder of Troop 6000, a program that empowers young women to build courage, confidence, and character, Ms. Giselle Burgess.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm so used to talking at nighttime. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, rather, right? Is it afternoon time? It is an incredible honor to stand here before you today in beautiful Los Angeles. We're all here united by a shared mission to build a society where everyone has a place to call home. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Chief Executive Officer Anna Leva for considering me to speak and inviting me to this remarkable conference. A special thank you to Gina Davis, Director of Meetings and Events, whose unwavering belief in me has been a guiding light. Gina, you are more than a friend. You are a mentor, family, and a constant source of encouragement to take the room. Thank you for sharing my story with Anne and always standing by me. Today, I want to talk about the intersections of homelessness, community, and resilience, and how each of us play a role in transforming lives. But before I do, we're going to have a little bit of fun taking some polls. For those of you who have not already completed any of the polls, we're going to do a little bit of polling today. So by using the Whova conference app, if you go pull up your digital agenda, you should be able to pull up today's closing plenary session. And at the top right side, this should say something, say poll on it. If you click on the poll, there's 4 polls there. And if you don't want to download it, that's totally fine. We can participate in other ways. But if you'd like to, go on in. I'll be checking it while we're doing the speech. As someone who's experienced homelessness firsthand, I carry with me not only the memories of those challenging days, but also the profound lessons they taught me about resilience and the transformative power of advocacy. My journey began in 2016 when my family and I found ourselves without a home after our rental was sold, entering the New York City shelter system and living in a hotel-turned-shelter in Queens. I still remember the overwhelming isolation in that shelter, the absence of community, and the heartache I felt watching my children carry the weight of a judgment from a world that did not understand our struggle. It was in that moment that I discovered an inner strength and a commitment to advocate, not only for my family, but for those facing similar challenges. In my role as a community development specialist with the Girl Scouts of Greater New York, I saw an opportunity. I reached out to a former CEO, Meredith Mascara, with a simple question: can we create a Girl Scout troop in the shelter? That moment led to the birth of Troop 6000, the first Girl Scout troop specifically for girls living in the New York City shelter system. What began as a small troop of 7 members, 3 of whom were my own daughters, transformed a Queens shelter into a vibrant hub of empowerment, connection, and hope. Just wanted to quickly, off topic, the other day was exploring the streets over here and found myself sitting on a corner people watching, and when I happened to look up, realized that I was in the corner of Hope Street. And it meant a lot to me in those moments. I'm a firm believer of signs, and just wanted to share like how important it is in order to have faith, to believe, to be mission-driven, there needs to be hope. Hope that we can create solutions in the challenges that we're facing. Troop 6000 not only brought joy and sisterhood into a space that had been so isolating, but also grew to serve more than 2,500 girls and women across 30 shelters in all 5 boroughs of New York City. Recognizing the evolving needs of our community, in January of 2023, we expanded to welcome migrant families, ensuring that our program provided both a safe haven and platform for personal and collective growth. Inspired by our adaptability and our commitment to inclusivity, Girl Scouts of Greater New York has since launched an equity task force. This team is working diligently to create policies ensuring that all girls in New York City, whether in shelters, doubled up, or in low-income households, can access life-changing opportunities without barriers. It's our belief that no matter where a girl is from or what her circumstances are, she deserves a chance to build a sustainable future. Today, we gather here while our conference takes place in Los Angeles. Our mission extends far beyond a single city. We're reminded of the pressing need to support the communities we serve. Our work is not solely about responding to crises. It's about it's about building lasting, resilient communities through an innovative advocacy, effective collaboration, and holding our city officials accountable. It's about communicating clearly and working together with other organizations, local governments, nonprofits, and grassroots groups to create a unified front that brings our communities together. At this moment, I'd like to pause for our first interactive poll. So first question that was asked was, what does home mean to you? Is home a safe space where you're welcomed and loved, a permanent dwelling where you feel secure, or a place of peace and personal growth? Seeing your responses, many of you envision home as a place of unconditional acceptance and security. Reminds us why our mission is so essential. When we speak about ending homelessness, we're not only talking about housing, we're talking about restoring dignity and ensuring that every person has a safe space to call their own. Here are some actionable, sorry, where's the prompting thingy? Maybe I'm missing it for the slideshow. Oh, down here, sorry. Apologies. All right, so here are some actionable steps that we can take to support those affected by homelessness and instability in the communities that we serve. If it pops up. Boom, there we go. Can we go back, maybe? Yes, all right. So advocacy for inclusive policies. Work with local governments to ensure emergency response plans include provisions for unhoused individuals and advocate for policies that prioritize affordable housing and long-term support. Community engagement. Mobilize volunteers to provide immediate relief, whether through food, clothing, or temporary shelter, and partner with local organizations to amplify our impact. Breaking stigma. Host community forums and educational events to challenge misconceptions about homelessness. Stories like those of Trip 6000 reveal the humanity and potential within every individual facing hardship. Investment in resilience. Support programs that empower individuals and families through job training, mental health services, and other sustainable resources to rebuild their lives. Humanizing the crisis. We must remember that behind every number is a story, is a family, a child. Organizations like Girl Scouts of Greater New York create spaces where individuals can reclaim their humanity and dignity. When communities understand the faces behind the crisis, they are more likely to act with compassion. Building collaborative networks. Homelessness demands collaboration between governments, non-for-profits, businesses, and grassroots organizations. Programs like Troop 6000 thrive because of partnerships with mission-driven organizations and donors who believe in the power of community. Fostering joy and resilience. Even in the direst circumstances, joy can be a lifeline. At Troop 6000 meetings, girls experience moments of connection and safety, a stabilizing force amidst chaos. These moments matter. I want to pause again for another poll. Second poll question was, building solutions together. What is one creative action you can take in your own communities? The options were advocacy and community engagement, sharing powerful stories with city officials, breaking the stigma, investment in resilience, humanizing in crisis, and collaborative networking. So based on the results, where a significant number of you mentioned humanizing the crisis and a community engagement, I see that your creative actions are rooted in making personal connections and advocating for change. This is exactly the collaborative spirit we need to drive the systemic solutions. In the pages of the Troop 6000 book, our journey is celebrated as a testament to resilience, innovation, and the transformative power of advocacy. I recall the early days, our very first meeting in a hotel shelter in Queens, where the joy and sisterhood that emerged among a small group of girls was a beacon of hope in an otherwise challenging environment. I witnessed shy girls slowly reveal their personalities, older Girl Scouts instinctively stepping up as leaders, and even parents beginning to form supportive relationships. It's in these moments of resilience and unity, that I find strength to keep fighting for change. On Wednesday, Anne mentioned a special phrase for what we would call a mission moment. Can anyone yell out really quick what those mission moments were, what that phrase was? Glimmers, yes. And I absolutely love the word glimmers. If you do not mind, Troop 6000 would love to adopt that word, and share our stories as glimmers, because that's really what they are. A few glimmers from our journey. From a timid migrant to a college graduate, we have a young girl who joined us in 2017, found not only a place to belong, but also a pathway to higher education, eventually graduating and returning as an advocate for families in need. From trauma to triumph, an original troop member burdened by a traumatic past discovered a supportive community that empowered her to pursue a degree and now volunteer as a mentor. A teen mother's strength. A young mother initially isolated by judgment found in Troop 6000 the resources and encouragement to continue her education and thrive. And lastly, from shy girl to global advocate. A once quiet member found her voice, growing into an international advocate who now works to create a resource network for new members and as a youth ambassador for the United Nations, and recently has traveled to DC to discuss the importance of policy change for women and girls affected by poverty all over the world. That young girl is my daughter. Thank you. There is a profound dedication in all of us to empower individuals and transform communities affected by homelessness. Many of our journeys parallel my own experiences in creating innovative programs like Troop 6000, where every setback was met with resilience and bold advocacy. It is my belief that meaningful change comes from addressing systemic challenges, fostering collaboration among organizations, advocating for policy change and sustainability, and celebrating the strengths of our communities. I've had a lot of interesting conversations over the past couple of days with many of you who I was able to meet, and one thing that I wanted to share was how remarkable and how beautiful and special it was to be able to share something with each and every single one of you. We all come from different walks of lives, but somehow all have a similar purpose, right? And that's being able to utilize the tools that we have been given, what we have learned, and share that with others to help support them and give them the tools and help advocate for them. So very pleased to have met all of you, and thank you so much for sharing your stories with me. Before we continue, third poll, almost done. How motivated are you to support and engage in community initiatives that empower vulnerable populations? So I'm heartened to see that the majority of you is extremely motivated. The shared drive is the fuel that powers our work. However, there was one that felt that they were not motivated at all. And I hope by the end of this conference that has changed, that we have been able to inspire you to continue doing the work that you're doing, that you feel motivated to keep on going, and if you feel that you are lacking the resources and tools to do the job that you need to do, that you feel confident and comfortable enough to come out and speak with your colleagues so that we can support you. Thank you. And last one, final poll, promise. What do you think is the most vital factor in building personal resilience during challenging times? The options were supportive community, personal determination, access to essential resources, and innovative leadership. So it reminds us that while individual grit matters, having a supportive community and the necessary resources truly make the difference. As we reflect on these shared insights, let us remember that reminding ourselves of great moments empowers us to stay focused on our overall mission, to provide all people with housing and sustainable resources to live normal, dignified lives free of barriers. Our work is not merely about shelter. It is about creating equitable policies and environments where every individual is seen, supported, and has the opportunity to thrive. To those working tirelessly on the front lines, know that your efforts are seen and celebrated. You are the architects of hope, transforming despair into possibility. To partners, donors, and advocates, your support makes this work possible. And to everyone here today, I challenge you to leave this conference inspired, not only to continue your essential work, but to dream bigger, collaborate boldly, and fight relentlessly for systemic change. In closing, let us remember that ending homelessness is about building communities where every individual has a place to call home. It's about ensuring that no child feels invisible, no parent guardian feels isolated, and no family is left without hope. Let us celebrate the glimmers, the moments of joy, and the transformative power of coming together as a community. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, for your commitment, your passion, and your belief in the power of community. Let's continue to inspire each other, advocate fearlessly, and work collaboratively towards sustainable, successful outcomes. Thank you. And for anyone who is interested in supporting Troop 6000, please buy some Girl Scout cookies. It is cookie season. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Giselle. All right, we have one more speaker between us and lunch. So please quiet your conversations as we welcome to the stage the Alliance's Vice President of Training and Technical Assistance, Mary Frances Kenyon.
Yeah. Hello, hello. Thank you. Thank you all on behalf of the entire Alliance team. Thank you for not only making the time to be together, but for bringing your very best. It has been a joy and honor to witness and support what's unfolded here this week. I'm feeling really full, inspired, and hopeful. But I'm grateful to each of you for your candor and humor, the stories you shared of your wins and losses, lessons learned, and the moments of big laughs and holding space for the grief that we've shared this week. What you all bring is what makes this conference a highlight of the year for so many of us. Seeing folks on our plenary stage, like Kevin and Giselle, who have harnessed their own lived experience of homelessness, or how the experience of homelessness of a family member has been the catalyst for their service and community is so powerful. We are in an especially difficult moment right now as a field and as a nation, and somehow I must close us out on a high note while balancing the realities of what each of us returning home face and the fight we're up against. But in times like these, the ones they always call unprecedented, I often find myself buried in history books and memoirs, searching for common threads to our ancestors, our inherited struggles, how far we've come and how far we want to go. So I want to share with you the words of Grace Lee Boggs, an Asian American organizer and activist, philosopher, and author who actually lived in LA very briefly before settling in Detroit. In her book, The Next American Revolution, she writes, "As my husband Jimmy used to remind us, revolutions are made out of love for people and for place. He often talked about loving America enough to change it. I love this country," he used to say, "not only because my ancestors' blood is in the soil, but because of what I believe it can become. Love isn't just something you feel, it's something you do every day when you go out and pick the paper and bottles scattered the night before on the corner, when you stop and talk to a neighbor, when you argue passionately for what you believe in with whoever will listen, when you call a friend to see how they're doing, when you write a letter to the newspaper, when you give a speech and give them hell, when you never stop believing that we can all be more than what we are." In other words, love isn't about what we did yesterday, it's about what we do today and tomorrow and the day after. And when I hear that, when I first read that, I can only think that we're up for the job. And more than up to it, we are at it already. Anne recently shared with me that our mission is deceptively simple: to end homelessness in the United States, something that in this moment might feel especially impossible right now. But it isn't. It's just that the impossible will take a little while. And if you follow the glimmers that we talked about, those bright spots of hope, signs of resilience, if you focus on the good work that persists even in the most challenging of times, you can see the makings of the future that one day we might get to celebrate. We are making what seems impossible more possible every day because each of you are doing this work. One of the core functions at the Alliance is bringing people together through conferences like this one, showing each other not only how to do better, how to try again, how to fail, how to recover, how to heal, but showing each other that we are practicing and showing each other that we are trying, no matter what. That is the making of a movement and an incredibly powerful way to instill faith that ending homelessness is possible. We see the evidence with every session. Even short conversations can seem to unlock new paths forward. We have a lot of people to bring home and work ahead. But there's a saying that light is brightest in the dark. And a part of our mandate is to protect those who have historically had less economic, social, and political power and representation, to center them and to support them in our work. We must ensure that transgender and genderqueer folks are safe. We must uplift, We must uplift how rural communities face an injustice of place with odds and resources stacked against them. We've got to advocate for our elders, our older adults, and make sure young people and people with disabilities are supported with what they need to thrive. And we must resist the urge to shy away from talking about how race and ethnicity further compounds the risk of who becomes homeless in our systems. Our innovations and solutions must address the specific needs of different people that are a part of different groups and often situated a little bit further away from opportunities. We must be the light in darkness. All right, what makes these conferences what they are is the entire small but mighty Alliance team, but especially my colleagues behind the scenes keeping the entire show on the road from coast to coast. I need applause after this one. Our operations and administrations team. Woo. Our communications team. Keep it going. Our events team. Thank you to our volunteers. We cannot pull these off without your support, and thank you to the entire Westin Bonaventure staff. Please, please, please tip your housekeeping folks. I promise I'm almost done, but I have to take a personal privilege, and I'd like to thank our leaders at the helm of it all, and the only people that I take executive orders from, Anna Leva and Shalom Mulkey. All right, I know we're hungry. July will be here in just 4 months, so I hope that you or folks from your organization will be joining us at our next conference. Your congressional members and their staffers will likely be on recess and away from Washington, D.C. at this time, so we are planning a virtual Capitol Hill Day in September. This is different. This is new. Please save the date, Wednesday, September 17th. Mark your calendars. If you have never participated in Capitol Hill Day before, this is the year that we need you to get involved. And in closing, as you leave today to head back to your communities, I want to ask each of you to lean in over the next few months. As tempting as it may be to get caught up in the despair of these moments, be courageous instead. Choose to never stop believing that we can all be more than we are. Practice love with advocacy in action. Every single small act of resistance to turning our backs on each other counts. Don't stop fighting for the people that we care about. Reach back and touch on what we shared together this week, whenever and however you can, to keep your faith, hope, and most importantly, love alive. We need you, and we're grateful for your work every day. Thank you.